Peace and all good, and a continued blessed Christmas season from Franciscan Media. I am Father Jim Sabak, and this is the Inbreaking of the Word. And so the Christmas season continues. We've got a couple more days until January the 12th with the baptism of the Lord. That kind of officially concludes the Christmas season according to our calendar, our liturgical calendar, although some diehards among us will take it as the medievals did to February the 2nd and the presentation of the Lord, which is connected to Christmas, yes, but we have ordinary time kind of intervening in the weeks of January that follow this year, January the 12th until February the 2nd. So whether February the 2nd or January the 12th, still more days to celebrate of Christmas. And so don't forget about doing that and make sure that you continue to do that, again, to show how out of step is faith with the ordered way in which the world seems to operate, because God does not operate around the world's ordered sense of itself, but operates as God does. And in that operation, we find wonder and brilliance and glory. And so today, we have just celebrated the second of the great post-Christmas feasts. The first one being Mary, the Mother of God, which again is January the 1st. And although the rest of the world may celebrate New Year's Day on that day, and we can too, our true New Year's Day as people of faith is always the first Sunday of Advent. So again, the distinctions between that, out of step. Once again, this entire season of Advent and Christmas reinforcing again and again how out of step we need to be as believers in the world, so that the world can see itself in a fuller way. The world can see itself beyond its own measurements of what they think are valuable or not valuable, of what matters and what doesn't matter. God is the one who shows us what matters, and God shows us in a way that is very different than our own feeble, fallible, ordered ways that we think the world operates best with. And so the second great feast that we celebrate post-Christmas is Epiphany. The third will be the baptism of the Lord. Again, that kind of concludes in one way the Christmas season for us. But today this is sort of a high mark, a zenith point within our celebration of Christmas. Again, not the last day of Christmas, as some people would think, again, because a lot of people look at 12 days of Christmas, meaning that's what it is, and you fall upon the 6th of January. That deals with a song that has its origin in a whole lot of other issues of trying to reinforce faith in a time of oppression and stuff like that. But that is not the measurement of the Christmas season. It is, though, a high point. And although it falls on January the 6th, we often will celebrate it, though, on a Sunday that is not January the 6th. And it's because sometimes our leadership as a church doesn't believe that we would know enough to gather for the Eucharistic liturgy on these important days if they fall on any day but a Sunday. And so we throw it on the nearest Sunday, which kind of distorts a little bit the pattern of Christmas. It's the same way that it distorts the pattern of Easter when we throw Ascension onto the Sunday that follows it, which we'll get to later on. But this is how things work. And as long as we get to celebrate the Epiphany, again, that has to be what matters, although there's something that is a loss within that too, because we don't celebrate the second Sunday of Christmas. But it is Epiphany. And again, this great exclamation point of what it means for this Christ to be born for us, which is an us that is not just Christians, it's not just Catholics, it's not just believers, it's not just the pious and the devout and the holy. What fun is there in that for being born just for these people who would expect it? This child is born again to those who did not expect it, and in ways that were exceptional and unexpected. And so this us, when we say the Savior is born for us, this child is born for us, is now extended beyond any particular group, any particular exclusivity, any particular, a sect or what have you. It is a child that is born for the cosmos. And when we talk about cosmos, we have to think about more than just planets and stars or even humans and angels. It is something, as Teresa Berger, who's a professor at Yale Divinity School, will often say, when we think about cosmos and cosmic, we are looking at something that is all encompassing, not just limiting itself to stars and planets or humans and angels, but everything that God has created, which goes down to the one-celled bacterium, all the way up to what may be an angelic being, however we define an angelic being. That God is born for us. The Savior is born for all of that. And all of that is called to give praise to God in whichever way it can. And we need to recognize the many ways in which this praise is given, to all of us. We're from all of creation to God. And how wonderful and beautiful it is that God allows for this praise to be given by all of creation in so many ways. And so Christmas again reinforces that. It comes to its highest point at Easter. Easter, but it's all about, again, this creation being able to praise this God in tremendously wonderful, beautiful ways. Epiphany is older than Christmas. It is more ancient. It has more ancient origins in the east of the Mediterranean amongst our Eastern Orthodox Christian brothers and sisters. For them, it celebrates a variety of things, not just the three kings, but Jesus's nativity. It celebrates his baptism. It also celebrates the water being made into wine. All of these as revelations of who and what this God is, which is, again, beyond expectation or beyond what is even thought appropriate or even valuable for a God to reveal this God's self as. But all of this, again, is a part of this great awakening of creation, of the cosmos, to who and what this God happens to be for us. And so we come to this great day. Isaiah is our first reading, always, which talks about Jerusalem arising and shining, and that a great cloud covers the nations and covers the world, and Jerusalem becomes a light that breaks through that darkness and reveals to the people what truly matters, what truly is important, where this God is who brings us out of darkness and into light. And because Jerusalem reveals that, it is not just something for Jerusalem alone. It is not just something for Israel alone, but has to be something that, again, shares with all people, with all nations. Again, a God who only looks at Jerusalem, who only looks at Israel, is a God who is limited. And again, if our God is limitless, then our God has to be one who shows and manifests his love and his care and his wonder and his beauty to all people, to all of creation. And it says in here that nations will stream towards it because of that light, and they will bring offerings, from Sheba and Midian and Ephah and all these other strange places that do not know Judaism, that do not know the God that Judaism is in relationship with, but now they want to become a part of this. They want to share in this. And again, these gifts are not brought to one person within Jerusalem, but are brought to the entire city itself, are brought to all the people, in this place. Again, this understanding of people wanting to be drawn, to this God who calls us into relationship. Ephesians, again, celebrates the fact that this God is now calling all nations into relationship with who and what this God is. And Paul in Ephesians basically says that, yes, it was given first to Judaism, but without any diminishment in that friendship, any diminishment in that connectedness, in that relationship that God has with Israel, it's now been shared. The understanding of what it means for God to share who and what God is with all the world. And so the Gentiles are now co-heirs, sons and daughters, along with Israel, in this great work that God has done and God has begun. And then there's Matthew's gospel, which again gives us the narration of these kings coming to, seeing the star, deciding to go and find out where it actually lands or where it's risen, or where it has risen over. The dialogue with Herod, the introduction to Herod becoming very fearful of any kind of usurper and does not have very good plans, for children who are born at this time, but who speaks nicely to these wise men and tells them, when you find this child, come back to me and I want to go worship him, which he does not. But the kings are given, or these wise men are given, some revelation in a dream to go back a different way and not to have to bypass Herod again. But the thing about it is that in Matthew's gospel, where this child is found to be is not the place where Luke's gospel leaves us. Again, if Mary and Joseph in Luke's gospel are from Nazareth, they have Jesus, they get done with the census, and they go back to Nazareth. This is not the case in Matthew's gospel. There is no census. There is no travel from Nazareth to Jerusalem. And in fact, in Matthew's gospel, it seems to be that Mary and Joseph, at least, are from Jerusalem, if not Bethlehem, or they're somewhere in the suburbs around that city. And so Jesus is born there without the whole no room at the inn, without having to find a stable or a cave. He's born into a house, and the wise men come to this house and they encounter Mary, and they lay before Jesus these most impractical or inappropriate gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They're given because they understand who this child is. They understand what this child can mean for the world. They may not understand fully. They may not understand, the full story about this, but wisdom has allowed them to go there. This wisdom of desire, this wisdom to search out, this wisdom to investigate, this wisdom to discover. Again, something that God gives us as human beings to be put to right use. The Magi show us, its appropriate use. Wisdom that allows us to discover God, not just benefits for ourselves, not just something to pump ourselves up with, not just something to make us famous and to achieve great heights just for ourselves, but something that leads us always to God. Again, this is whole Bonaventure. Again, the soul's journey into God is done by the exercise of wisdom and the understanding of where wisdom can lead us and how wisdom opens up our minds and our hearts to the wonder and beauty of God around us. It begins with these wise men. It begins with these magi. It begins with these kings who, again, begin to complete what it is that Advent opened up for us in its opening prayer, that let nothing stand in the way in our haste to run to meet the Savior. And this is what actually the wise men are showing us, that nothing stood in the way of embarking upon this very strange trip to find where a star rises above or where it lands upon, and to discover in there a wonder and beauty they never ever thought possible, a wonder and beauty that may have changed their lives forever, and a wonder and beauty that we have inherited in our own desire, in our own search for God, which is always where the Christmas season leads us. So a continued blessed Christmas season from Franciscan Media, and may the Lord give you his peace.